Hi, everybody. Recruiting Animal here on April 3rd, 2024. And I just have to say, before we start, I couldn't start the recording. And the guest, he solved the problem. Okay. So he's got a point for him. None of the vicious critics have shown up yet. But, you know, because our guest is so much of a sexist in favor of women, she showed up. Our only regular, well, not our only, our most regular woman on
most regular. I'm the most regular.
No, we've also got
sounds
Sasha.
like digestive
Sasha
issues.
might be the only other person in this besides me who can actually say the guest's name. Thomas Shomoro Premiusic, right?
That was really good. Impressive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because he's been on twice before, and none of the other regulars liked him. I'll have to say that none of them liked him. And but I think he's one of the most interesting people writing about talent online. Like he's better than 99% his articles. And the thing is, English is his second language. Now, I might like it because everything he says is inflammatory. He is a debunker extraordinaire. And I've got just a list of casual statements that I got off of an interview I think you did with Harvard Business Review, where you said all kinds of inflammatory things. But he's most famous for his book about why do we hire, what's the title? Why do we hire incompetent men? What's the title?
Almost. The title is Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders and How to Fix It.
Okay. So here's the thing. His book, his most famous book, is the most wokest book you can imagine. Okay, although I just saw him this morning. I said feminists don't like you. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, although I'll have to say, with a title like that, he's talking about. We'll get to it. Let's just do a short intro. He's saying that most leaders, bosses, they're hired for their bad traits, and women have way more good traits, and people overlook them. They see those things as weaknesses. We'll discuss that at length. But geez, where was I going? I had mental problems. I told these people
feminists don't like him.
What did you say? Anyway,
feminists.
Let's get to it. Here, just so you know, Tom, okay, I did have an intro, but we got screwed up. It says he wrote a book called Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? And he goes around, this is what I was going to say. When Eddie Murphy became famous, you know who Eddie Murphy is, right? Okay, Eddie Murphy. Should mention, Joseph Conrad is one of the most famous novelists in the English language, and English was his second language as well. Okay, so you can see yourself as the Joseph Conrad of human resources articles on FastCompany. Okay.
How did you get from Eddie Murphy to Joseph Conrad?
I know.
Where are you going today?
Well, okay, Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, when he became famous, he did these recorded shows. I didn't like them. He had. Mr. T having sex with Michael Jackson. It didn't turn me on, okay? But he said that women threw themselves at him. And I always imagine that when Tom wrote that book about how fantastic women are, and he's going around speaking at these conferences, he must be accosted by all kinds of women who are telling him how fantastic he is. Should I ask you that question or push it to the side?
You can, it's your show, and you rarely have any inhibitions, so feel free to ask whatever.
Okay, do you get all kinds of women cozying up to you because of your?
No, and I generally say that women who describe themselves as traditional feminists don't like a couple of arguments in the book. First of all, they see women as equal to men, which I deny with a little.
Equal, you mean the same? Equal, you mean
exactly,
the same?
Exactly the same. And secondly, they tend to like a lot of these mainstream diversity and inclusion, gender diversity interventions, like lean in, be more confident, promote yourself, which I also say would actually make more leaders toxic. So they don't like.
He's against Sheryl Sandberg. Okay, no one's ever tried to put you in a debate with her that I've seen. Is that no? Would you do it? Would you do a debate with her?
Of course.
Okay. Do you think she's a successful businesswoman?
Yes, of course.
And what about she's famous for having these little coffee clatches at her own home where she guides these young women, and then they get on YouTube and say, she's the most fantastic thing. She's a goddess, okay? She inspired me. And you're coming and saying she's stupid, okay? She wants women to be more like men. And we haven't even got to the,
Listen, I'm an academic, right? So I write about the science of gender leadership. She is a successful businesswoman with opinions. This is like, you can go to a friend's house and he or she might be a good chef and cook you something, but they don't necessarily can provide expert nutritional advice on what you're eating, right? She does a good meal and people like it, and I'm sure she means well, but actually it's against most of the science of what we know about what makes some leaders good and others bad. Okay,
I'm going to read some of the fun stuff that you say. Nearly all of the people who think they're creative and think they have a great sense of humor and are extremely open-minded actually fail to come across that way to other people. So that's going to be impression management in interviews is one of your big topics. Am I right about that?
Yeah, in fact, I've been writing a lot about authenticity, against the authenticity cult, trying to help people be more aware of their reputation and understand that, if you don't learn to fake it in a natural way, you're probably not going to come very far in life.
Okay, but hold on a second. Let's come right to this. Nearly all of the people who think they're creative, have a great sense of humor, and are extremely open-minded, everybody else can see that isn't true. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Correct.
Do you have an example for us, or like where did you pull that one out?
Well, there's something called the better than average bias, which basically there's tons and tons of studies done in every country, more or less. And if you ask people, are you funnier than most people? 90% of people say yes, which is, of course, a statistical impossibility. Are you a better driver than most people? 90% of people say. Are you a better lover or better in bed than most people? 90 to 95% of people say yes. So actually, then there's the studies looking at how good the 5 or 10% of people are who are modest or humble. Now, we don't actually test against an objective benchmark of how good a lover they are, but you can test their mathematical abilities, their driving abilities, etc. So you're far more likely to be good at something when you are self-critical and when you're modest and humble. This is also called, by the way, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
That idiots and experts don't differ in their self-perceived.
Okay, I just watched you this morning on YouTube saying if you feel a lack of confidence, that's telling you something true. You're not good in that thing and you shouldn't do it. Now you just said everybody I don't believe it. Just doesn't ring well true to me that everybody thinks they're better at everything, even at sex. Donna used to wait. Donna's intelligent. Okay, she used to be a teacher before she was a recruiter. You believe that, Donna? And Donna's been married to the same guy since high school or something like that.
Congratulations,
right?
Donna. I was going to say, by the way, that there are also gender differences in how much women and men are represented in either the overconfident or the underconfident group, right? Which mirror social stereotypes, I would say.
Okay, I'm going to read through just a bunch more of your stuff that I like. Most organizations will promote self-promoters who are quite incompetent, except when it comes to taking credit for other people's achievements or blaming others for their own mistakes at the expense of promoting colleagues who are more competent but humble. That's wild. How do you get away with saying something so blatant? That's why I like it, okay? But maybe that's a bad sign. Nobody likes me, okay? They think I'm stupid. This show's been on for years. It's not popular. I told you that up front. You know it yourself, okay? No one's ever said, hey, yeah, I heard him on the Recruiting Animal show. No, okay? Even the people who come to the show regularly, they don't like it. So
I like it.
Okay, yeah, but my point is here
he moves it along.
Yeah, here he's going around saying you bosses are stupid. You stink. I mean, that's about the worst thing you could say about somebody. Here's another one. Okay, now you said this in July 2014? You
I
got to
feel
tell
like
me.
I'm on a deposition here.
Okay, you said, well, this is what I like about you. Okay, millennials, although I don't agree with you about this necessarily, millennials are more narcissistic than any other generation. They think they're better than they are, and this decreases the amount of effort and hard work they're willing to put in. Okay, that was 10 years ago. We'll come back. And here's what you say: competent people are generally confident, but confident people are not generally competent. Competent people are generally confident, but confident people are not generally competent. That's a beautiful one. Okay, did you make that up yourself?
Yeah. I
That was
tried.
a good one, wasn't it, Donna?
Okay, yeah, but pause now. You're going too fast. So stop at that one, because I wanted to talk about that, because we're hiring a lot right now. We've done a lot of interviews, and I just had a candidate come in who did not meet any of the job description. He's someone I knew personally, and he wanted to break into this industry. And he was actually recruited. Well, I shouldn't say that. I won't say too much more identifying things. But anyway, I knew him. And I was like, look, I'll do the best I can to position you and see if I can get you an interview. He's very charming. He's confident. He's charming. He's attractive. We've never hired someone so fast. And I mean, like, he didn't meet anything that they told me to look for, and like that. And, I think he's also going to be competent just because I know other things about him. But I've seen that happen before, where we ended up having to let someone go, but they mastered that, that charm and that air of, I can do anything, like whatever you need me to do, I've got it. So I guess the question is, do you have advice for how to cut through the bull and get to the
You're getting too wordy. I don't let people run on like you. I just wonder if I should let this new person in, okay?
I just finished asking him for help.
The most important thing and the critical question is whether their performance after they are hired, once they're hired, can actually be evaluated in objective terms. Like, let's say this person is going to fly an airplane or perform dental surgery or, be in charge of your finances. At some point, their charm, their charisma, their confidence kind of becomes irrelevant. Like, it's nice to have a pilot that is charismatic and funny, but if they can't fly, you're going to crash. But the problem is that in a lot of knowledge economy, white-collar jobs, actually, it's very easy to bullshit your way into being a high performer.
How can you, if you go in for it? I was reading this when you say, okay, you know what? It's these knowledge jobs are so sophisticated, the interviewers they can't assess their real value, so they get swayed by their charming qualities, like you just said. But really, people do have to, in the end, they have to be interviewed by people who are technical experts. How do you justify them getting away with it?
Yeah, but it's very difficult to actually, let's say you're hiring a CEO. It's not so easy to truly understand their command of strategy, whether they are inclusive, whether they create safety.
Okay, so you're talking about the top leaders. What about
at the level that Donna is talking? There's a lot of these hires who are well-paid, skilled, knowledge economy workers, and Donna is probably correctly predicting that this person will be able to come across as a high performer once they're hired. Why? Because they're going to be likable, they're going to tell good stories, they're going to work well with others, whatever. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they're adding value.
Let me challenge you again, okay? You're saying the proof is in the pudding, and that's we'll only know after the plane crashes if this person was really as good as they seemed. But you also said, I saw it this morning, I watched a bunch of your shorts. You said, look, knowledge doesn't mean anything anymore because it's so accessible to everybody, and you're going to have to change. You're going to have to change your area of expertise every 6 months. So people should be hiring for potential, not for what you know. So you're contradicting yourself, aren't you?
No, I know you love to ask that question, but I'm not, because hiring for potential means hiring for things like curiosity, the ability to learn, not so easy to see in an interview, very different from being confident or charming or having social skills. It also means actually hiring for self-critical humility, which you can see in an interview, but typically when somebody displays it, you're like, oh my God, this person is an insecure coward with imposter syndrome. We don't like that. We're still over-indexing on the alpha type, people who are going to be assertive. And again, this kind of bias might never be detected afterwards, because with most jobs, it isn't ever a clear-cut scenario of whether the plane will crash or not. There is no plane to crash, Somebody will say you failed at delivering your digital transformation strategy, and you will say it was amazing, and then you tell stories. Look, President of the United States, we cannot agree on whether they were good or bad. People love certain characters because they were funny and looked good in interviews in a suit, and nobody sits down to look at the KPIs and see, okay, what did it do to the economy, to unemployment, to politics, to healthcare, etc. Right? So the more complex potential and talent become, the more we rely on our gut feel, and that means focusing on confidence and not on competence.
I think people who are hiring people with technical expertise, like developers and stuff like that, maybe they would disagree with you, because the recruiter is going through a checklist. He or she doesn't necessarily have any expertise in that area. But once the candidate says, yeah, I've got all those things, they pass him or her onto someone who actually knows that stuff and is going to manage them. And you don't think the manager of a small department has the ability to assess technical expertise. And I want to say something. Here's why they didn't like him last time. It's not that he's not a nice guy, or that he doesn't write well or doesn't speak well, because his key to everything is using personality tests to assess these qualities, and no other recruiter believes in them. Okay, am I right?
Let me tell you a story. When IQ tests were first invented, right? IQ tests have bad reputation. People don't like them. People prefer to hire or select on educational credentials, which is a far less inclusive and far more privileged measure of IQ. But anyway, we can leave that aside. But IQ test was first invented in the late 19th century by the Educational Ministry of France, because they realized that teachers would give low grades to kids that were smart but poorly behaved, right? And we still have this problem today.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time, right? So if you're actually a great programmer, a great software engineer, and somebody who actually contributes great value to it, and if your performance is great, but you're a bit grumpy, or you lack social skills, or you don't have political skills, you will not go far in life. By the same token, if a manager has somebody who isn't very productive and isn't very talented, but they don't create problems and they suck up to them, they will keep that person forever.
That's all true. 100%.
So,
I've seen
every other person recruiting has a choice. Shall I deliver the candidate that would add more value if the system was fair, or shall I deliver the one that will get furthest in their career because they will know how to navigate the system, because they're a political hyena, they're a Machiavellian player who understands the rules? The latter will give you more points.
Okay, here's actually why, what prompted me. I've wanted to invite you back for a long time, but I didn't know if it was going to work. But this time you wrote that article about the growth mindset, and I said I'd really like.
What did he say about it? I want to hear. What's your opinion about that?
First of all, I first found out about it when
I got to talk to him later when you let me ramble more.
Yeah, Roy Baumeister, he wrote a famous article about willpower, that it was limited, and then Carol Dweck, another famous psychologist, she came out and said, no, willpower is not limited. The more you believe you have, the more that you actually do have, if I'm not mistaken, right? Well, I think Baumeister's research was devalued when everybody said all these psychological tests are garbage. But put that to the side for a second. I'm getting verbose myself. I know I am. But here's what Tom said in the end. He said, the best driver of success cannot be improved, and that is IQ. Most of the proven...
So
let me finish.
You're going on too long.
I'll just go one more second.
One
more
second.
I'm quoting the gas. He said most of the proven drivers of competence, career success, and job performance are unrelated to growth mindset. For example, IQ, or general mental ability. It's the most consistent and systematic predictor of higher job performance, and it's unrelated to a growth mindset. Donna, over to you.
I just wanted to ask about neuroplasticity. So is that something that you feel like, is there a window where it's true, or do you just like, no, it's not? Or how do you deal with that with IQ?
First of all, Roy Baumeister is was, I don't know if he's here. I think he might still be alive, but anyway, top
He's
scholar.
only about 70. I don't think he's not that old.
Sorry about this. Top scholar, academic. Willpower is a great book, strongly recommended. Secondly, Carol Dweck, when she wrote the original book, she talked about, it was a very short book, talking about how there was this study that showed that kids who believed that they could successfully influence their intellectual performance worked harder and did better. And then, Malcolm Gladwell made that famous by weaponizing it and popularizing it. And then it's like the American Dream 2.0. Oh, if you believe in it, you can make it. And by the way, if you're poor and you're struggling and you're a failure, it's all your fault. You're not exercising or displaying a growth mindset. So, there's a lot of dilution there. We can get into that. Neuroplasticity is real. It's a real concept. So, there is such a thing as gene-environment interaction, and actually epigenetics is a big field. But that doesn't mean that, there is just no evidence showing that, one day you wake up and, through mindfulness or some kind of intervention or some magical things that happen at the level of your brain, you suddenly develop a more can-do attitude. And all other things being equal, your drive, your personality, your intelligence, your privilege, your education, whatever, and all the things that people select for, suddenly that is going to make, there is no single study that shows that. So there is no evidence at all. And actually, there are a lot of studies showing that other things that are not malleable or largely set by the age of 10 matter a lot. So, you can tell people whatever you want to tell them, something that makes them feel good, but sometimes the outcome of that is
Did you answer her question about neuroplasticity? He buried it. No, also, let me guide him, okay? He said for a second, yeah, it's real, but then he didn't address anything. Yes, Donna, this is how you can improve.
But wait, he said something I want to follow up on, though, because then he talked about how there are things that are set by age 10. So when you think about Carol Dweck and a lot of how her information has been used, it's been adopted widely by school systems. And when I was teaching gifted students, our gifted supervisor was a big Dweckie. That's what they call them, Dweckies. She was a big Dweckie. But when you talk about by age 10, if you're implementing some of her methods with the children when they're young, do you feel like it's more likely to work than, say, if animal tries it?
I think it just makes no difference. It's like a placebo, right? It's like the difference between making them watch Peppa Pig or Bluey or something. It makes no difference. I mean, it's like
What about that in combination, though? Because here's the thing. I do believe that if you already believe that you can't do something, it also impacts the rest of your behaviors and what you do from that point forward. So then the effort you give, the focus you give, the drive you have is not going to be the same as if in your mindset, I'm going to be able to do this. I can conquer this. I've got it. So it's like a first step to other things.
Yeah. But as I argue in that article, an extreme growth mindset is as problematic as an extreme, inhibition or, like tendency to self-contain yourself. Sometimes it is good to understand that you cannot do something. The right degree of self-efficacy, which by the way is a Canadian guy, so I think Albert Bandura actually coined the term.
I think he's South African. Bandura
is Canadian. He coined the term self-efficacy, which initially was meant to be a state, but then all the research showed it's a personality trait. Self-efficacy, is maybe generally better if it's a bit higher and not very low, but actually the correct degree or amount is one that informs you as to whether you can do something or not, right? Imagine if my high self-belief and being able to cross a busy junction drives me to cross a busy junction when a train or a bus is coming, I'll get killed, right? So, and sometimes, if you're obsessed with thinking that you can be a CEO, a president, or the captain of a football team, at some point it's helpful to understand, look, you reach your limitations, there's other career paths. That's not the end of the world. And that actually comes from saying, okay, you know,
hold on a second. Let me defend Donna here. You
Any defense?
Yeah, you seem to be a guy. If a bunch of people at a dance are wallflowers because they're too afraid to make fools of themselves, you're saying, hey, you guys are smart. You know that you're losers. Stay against the wall. Don't learn how to dance. Don't learn to do things better. That's sort of the pessimistic attitude you get watching some of his things. At the same time, he'll come out and introduce himself. Hey, I'm an egomaniac because I come from Argentina, and we're all egomaniacs there, okay? And then you suggest, well, you know what? I can learn to humble it down a bit. You know, how much? What Don was kind of asking you is how much change is possible, okay? Can you ask her concisely so, you know, people understand what you're saying?
No, I think she was asking about neuroplasticity because we don't know how to influence that to the point that you can follow the rest of it. But I can answer the question of how much change is possible. That one is easier. And, you know, I would say that 50% of the variability in the traits that predict job performance and career success are probably set, half of it is set by the age of 10. And the remaining 50 will fluctuate after that. But it fluctuates in a weird way, right? So, you know, we all change, but we tend to change in the same direction. Most people become more pleasant, more stable, more sociable, more agreeable. We basically, less open-minded. We basically, most of us become a more boring version of our former self.
Is that because the testosterone drops down in men?
Well, you speak for yourself, my friend. No, I think it's because you adjust, you have other...
I don't have a beard like his. I always wanted one of those beards that you're a 5 o'clock shadow at 9 in the morning.
I think it's just basically maturing. And, you know, in the beginning, up until your 40s or 50, you're very focused on getting ahead. Not if you're, of course, you know, Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, but for the majority of people, up until their 40s, let's say, or middle ages, they're very focused on getting ahead. That means you have to be more aggressive and more focused on competition. Then you focus more on getting along and preserving. You become more conservative because the more you know, the less interested you are in having other people prove you wrong. That's why also the world becomes more polarized.
Yeah, okay, I'm not following you. I have to cut you off. Okay, that's not a good answer. Okay, that's not a good answer. You just...
Two more things on change. Basically, first, we all become a more boring version of ourselves. Secondly, many people become a more exaggerated version of their early selves. That's the second path. So if you were obnoxious at the age of 15, you're going to be an, you know, total, you know, obnoxious person. I don't want to swear here at the age of 50.
You can say anything you want.
The third one is that for people who really want to change in a positive way, who are open to feedback and engage in coaching, etc., the evidence is very clear. 30% of those people will improve by 30%. But the irony is that those who improve are those who needed it the least. They're not the incompetent leaders who are refused feedback or who are narcissistic. They're people who...
Okay, I got so much stuff. I was worried because of my ailment, my dental ailment, and the show's picking me up. I feel a lot better than when we started, okay? But I actually have more than we're going to cover, and it's all interesting stuff. I feel we're missing it, but this... a woman here, she's never been on before. If she has something she'd like to say, she's welcome to. I was worried when she joined a few weeks ago. I let a new person in and she started playing ISIS videos of executions and stuff like that. It was awful. It was awful. Okay, so
I just muted So if you want to talk, you'll have to unmute yourself because there kept being feedback.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
But I can't unmute
her. I'll invite her if she wants to say something. But, you know, Rich isn't here. We've got a superstar recruiter here on a regular basis, Tommy. We're just graced with his presence, okay? And I wanted you to
Animal
take
has
him
a
on.
crush on him.
I wanted you to take him on today because I saw one of his ads that he posted on. His name is Super Rich. And we call him Richie Rich Rosen. And he posted an ad on LinkedIn, and I thought, oh boy, this is great. I'm going to test it against Tom Shimoro Premuzic. Okay, and just in case, I saw a video of this YouTuber, and she said, "Don't waste your time on introductions." So I couldn't help myself. I had to praise Tom at the beginning for the things that I liked about him. I think he's a super guy, just like Super Rich in a different field. But he's also a professor at Columbia. She said, save the introductions for later. He's a psychology professor. He's a big shot with, you're still with Hogan Assessments as a VP?
No, not anymore. No, not anymore.
Okay, but he used to be. Okay, now you've got your own deeper insights or something like that?
No, I'm mostly with Manpower Group, big recruitment firm.
Okay. As your title, what's your title there?
Chief Innovation Officer.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a whole nother story. Okay. Wait a sec. So this is with Rich. I am, if you want to say something now, you're going to have to wait. You were slow on the draw. Rich says.
Please don't crash. Please don't crash. Drive safely.
Yeah. Okay. She said, maybe she's just at the side of the road. Okay. Rich places sales reps for software sales reps. And he said, in over 2 decades of connecting top tier talent with leading companies, if there's one attribute that stands out in the most successful salespeople, it's empathy. He says, empathy doesn't just mean understanding your customer's needs. It means genuinely caring about them. It's about building relationships, not just closing deals. Okay. It's seeing the world from their perspective, understanding their challenges, and offering solutions that truly make a difference. That sounds like the opposite of the stereotype of a successful salesperson, doesn't it to me?
No. I completely agree with him. I think, yeah. But I will also say there is a great book that you should read called Against Empathy by a guy called Paul Bloom.
I have Paul Bloom. Yeah, Pleasure of Suffering. That's what he's famous for, isn't he?
Very, very well known. But he makes a very interesting and data-driven point, which is that if you actually want to have an inclusive or diverse organization where people from different backgrounds, different values, different opinions, different preferences can work together, empathy is not enough and sometimes counterproductive, because we evolved empathy to fundamentally feel or experience positive things towards others who are more like us. Right? So if you're white, you're much more likely to empathize with a white person than a black person. If you're young, you're much less likely to empathize with an old person. So what he says is like, what we actually need to create or harness is what he calls rational compassion, which means, recruiting animal, I don't really like you. We don't have anything in common, but I'm supposed to pretend to be nice to you. So I'm going to make the best effort I can to fake being civilized. And then when I get home, I'm going to bitch about you with my spouse, right? And that's what he says would be a much more achievable and attainable goal to improve.
Just be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just saying the golden rule: treat others like you want to be treated.
You can read Dale Carnegie.
Revolutionary.
How to win friends and influence people.
He didn't say that. He didn't say that. And we haven't even got to the women. I got tons of stuff on the women. Okay. But he says, emotional intelligence is highly valued these days, and all it is pretending to be more considerate than you really feel. Okay, he's totally against.
Although it is also empathy, right? Empathy, empathy has largely been rebranded as emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence, contrary to what Daniel Goleman said and what people think, is actually impression management. Is the ability to come across as rewarding to deal with, even if you can't stand the person that you're in front of it. The opposite, I have low EQ because you can see my emotions. If I don't like you, you can see it right away. If I like you, you can see. It's called leakage. I'm a bad poker player. Not really true, but I am. Haha, which one is it? Because you can actually see through my emotions. And people who are highly emotional intelligent are more like the now defunct Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth. You never know if like her husband died or she got a new dog or she, is the recipient of a new favorable tax law that she passed, or she's always phlegmatic and unemotional. That is high EQ. That
sounds counterintuitive, because it sounds like the higher the emotional intelligence means the less there are emotions.
Correct.
There's just no emotions displayed.
Tony Soprano, on the other hand, has very low EQ.
It almost sounds like the more manipulative you are, perhaps, the better your emotional intelligence, which is weird.
Well, when
but I guess it makes sense because you're reading everybody all the time, and you're responding in a way. Okay.
But if emotional intelligence is coupled with altruistic values, you don't get Machiavellian. If it's coupled with low integrity or corrupted, crooked values, then you get,
Yeah, but either way, when you're being manipulative, even if it's for what you think are good purposes, I mean, it's still ultimately the same thing. I mean, you're still controlling a situation where other people don't realize that you're in control.
Yeah.
No, hold on a second. It's just being civilized. That's what he pretty much says. You don't want.
He's saying more than that. He's saying a lot more than
No, he isn't. He's saying you don't want some hothead running your department who abuses everybody, with a vicious language. They have to pretend that they're calm, and he uses the words actually suppress your emotions. Am I right about that, Tom?
Exactly. That's why Canada is a much more emotional intelligent country than Argentina. That's why.
Okay, they used to be compared around 1900. They were paired. I've read it a number of times, and you were right about Albert Bandura. He's from Alberta. He's from Alberta originally. I am. Okay, since you showed yourself now again, I'll give you another chance. I'll take a breath. If you want to say something to Tom or criticize Donna, please feel free. Show yourself again. You don't even have to show yourself. Just start talking, okay? But with none of that gurgle.
Say something to Tom, criticize Donna. That's not very nice.
I would just be nice, Okay, I didn't want to. I just wanted to be nice. Be nice. So, okay. What about? I forgot what I was going to say. But what about an egomaniac like General Patton during the war? Did you see the movie with George C. Scott by any chance?
I have, and I have read.
Oh, you should. It's online. I'll send you a link.
I have, and I have read.
You have.
Okay. Yeah, I have read a couple of biographies, and I'm very. Yeah, I mean, I think. What is the question? Was he an egomaniac, or
No, he was an egomaniac. He was unfiltered. He slapped a soldier in front of a TV, a news photographer. Okay, but he was one of the best generals in World War II on the Allied side. Am I right about that?
I think there is some debate about that. And like his son, for example, was supposedly a much better general, but didn't have a big war to go to. And he was a nice person, more highly condecorated than him, and didn't have that reputation. But look, I think the problem with those cases is like, if you want to tell every aspiring entrepreneur or leader that they should learn from Elon Musk because he's very successful, right? And therefore they should behave like him. I mean, most of them would get fired as soon as they join. Those who make it a little bit further will have extremely toxic effects on their, there's a few exceptional cases who maybe can pull it off because they have exceptional talents to back it up, or there's a little bit of being in the right place at the right time. That's like when people compare. Well, you could say similar things about Churchill. Churchill is usually the poster man or leader for situational theories of leadership because he was as a kind of temperamental, volatile, eccentric, creative, and extremely risk-taking individual. Great to put in front of Hitler and then even negotiate with Stalin. But when things calm down and he had to rebuild, whatever, I mean, he just completely failed, right?
Well, they kicked him out, right?
The situation and the context are important, but we shouldn't extrapolate from a small number of unrepresentative case studies.
Well, what about those women? Like, I have a list here. I just can't find them right now. Did you happen to see the long article on Kim Mulkey, that basketball coach in the Washington Post a few days ago? I'm gonna send you the link. It's really cheap to subscribe, but I can send you a shared article if you don't have access. These women's basketball coaches are tough cookies. Okay, so I don't know if that qualifies with the kind of typical women's behavior. Jordan Peterson, okay, you should get on a debate with him as well. That would be a nice matchup.
I would love to.
Well, hey, maybe I can arrange it on the Recruiting Animal show. Well, his daughter's got a show. I'm going to send them a note that okay, but here's what he says. He says women initiate divorce more than men because they also score higher in trait neuroticism. Okay, that maybe it just means they're more emotional, which simply means they're more sensitive and emotional, presumably because they have to take care of infants. That's they're born with that sensitivity, and that means they get, you know, when they're not happy when things are going on in a marriage, so they initiate divorce. What, do you agree with that, or I'm trying to read
No, I
your
think
face,
he's
your
putting,
linkage.
I mean, I'm not even sure that it's true that they initiate divorce more, but if they are, then if they do, then you have to look at a list of all the reasons why they do it and see what is the weighting or the impact of their slightly higher score on neuroticism. That part is true. You know, Jordan is a personality researcher. He has exactly the same background as I do. And he was a serious and quite boring academic who had his YouTube lectures gone viral. And then when he basically provoked a journalist, he became sort of like, you know, the Kim Kardashian of pop psychology and the main kind of, I would say, sergeant or captain of the anti-woke movement. But he's a very rational and data-driven guy. So we would agree on 90% of things.
Yeah, if you said the kind of things you say about women, about any other group, you would be going the way of Larry Summers. That's what I believe. That's what I believe, because you are just so I am sexist. You come out there with and say with your, you know, like a fist, I'm sexist, and I think we should be more sexist, but in favor of women. Okay.
Oh, don't forget, I say that I am a data-driven feminist.
Yeah, that's
sexist.
even worse.
So I am sexist because A, I don't think the genders are equal, and B, you know, I have an inability to ignore gender when I look at people. I see their gender, and both the combination of those things. Now, it turns out that the kind of sexism that I adhere to or espouse would lead to the underrepresentation of men in leadership roles, would lead to the underrepresentation of men in positions of status and power, because I think women are better suited for it.
Okay. Donna.
Yep.
Take your shot.
What
You
shot?
want to say something?
No, I mean, a lot of the things that I care about, that he's talking about, I don't think anybody else would care about, because I still get stuck on how this applies in the early years. Because even though I'm recruiting now, you know, I still go back to education, and there's some. I
What
don't think
grade
anybody else
did you
would care.
teach? Grade 4?
I did everything from kindergarten to, I think the oldest I did was 7th or maybe 8th.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
I'm going to be modest. I'm going to assess I haven't really laid out, which I should have, his argument in favor of women. Okay. Maybe if we're almost, we got 10 minutes, but maybe we can do that. But let me throw out something on Flem. What about Elizabeth Holmes, convicted of fraud?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. What about her? And I got a few others. Well, Pat Summitt, that's another basketball player.
Well,
you probably
you're finding outliers.
It's a game. You do one woman and I do one man, and we'll see who lasts longer, right?
You also say the women aren't given a chance, so we can't show the bad.
Oh,
the
okay. Let me say one thing,
many.
Animal. Listen, because you prove his point. Because you've called me out before for not speaking enough or not interrupting, and you're even like, why aren't you saying more? And I've told you, especially when we have like Richie Rich or other people on, I'm listening and learning, and when I have something to say, I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to interrupt and butt in just to hear myself talk, because I want to learn from what I hear from them. And that's something that you've like slapped me on the wrist about.
I don't slap you. I just give you a kiss.
You
I'm too polite. I'll speak on my own, but I'm too polite. If I see somebody like I am or Donna, and they're not saying something, they might have some qualms about being rude, and being rude is sort of the way the show works. So I give you a special invitation to speak up.
Yeah, but you said more than that.
No, I didn't. But let's focus on the guest. When do we get a guest like this?
So you asked me to say something like "shut up."
If you're filing for divorce, Jordan Peterson is going to blame it on your high neuroticism. So just difference. No, Elizabeth Holmes. What can I say? I mean, first of all, where is she now?
In jail.
Like jail.
And where is Adam Newman, the WeWork guy?
I don't know.
Oh, well, look him up. See how
I know what happened, but I don't know what I can't.
How much further he got in his career for essentially, doing the same thing. I mean, secondly, Elizabeth Holmes actually got there through replicating the narcissistic, overconfident, and megalomaniac, non-empathetic, and you could say psychopathic profile that I attack. Now, it turns out more often than not, that's more often found in male executive founders and leaders than female. But you have some women, right? And sometimes they succeed for emulating men. My book is against that as well. I'm not saying we shouldn't have men or we should have women. I'm saying we shouldn't have people with narcissistic or psychopathic features.
But the way you say it, it sounds like women are naturally more have all the good traits than men. We won't spend time on this. Lizzo, she's been charged with being a bad manager. Ellen, the nice person on TV, the goody, bad manager. Klobuchar, who ran for president, she was apparently a nasty office manager. I don't know, but we do hear these things. So
it's a bit like height, right? Do you agree that men are on average taller than women?
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you agree or not.
So that is a fact, right? And likewise, it's a fact that men are on average more narcissistic than women and more psychopathic than women. Now, the gender difference in narcissism and psychopathy is about a third of the difference in height, but it still scales up, right? And like when I talk about empathy, self-awareness, humility, integrity, emotional intelligence, it still favors women, even if it's a difference of 10%, which is a much smaller margin than height. But it turns out it's like saying, okay, height is a good predictor of being a good basketball player, so let's go and select short people. That's what we're doing when it comes to gender and leadership.
Okay. And, I had one issue I wanted to raise before the show was over. I can't, if I stop talking, I forget what I wanted to talk about. Now, maybe that's due to age. I don't know.
It's a narcissistic trait. When it's not all about you, it escapes your brain.
Oh, shame on you, Donna.
Ouch.
Yeah, let me see. It was something that was like a burning issue. Oh, I know. Did you read that article in Quillette that came out last week about why men are better than women in chess?
No, I haven't seen that either.
I'll send that to you as well. I mean, it says that they are men have a fanatic inborn desire to win. Okay, and so they will practice obsessionally. Scrabble as well. They will be able. Scrabble players, the men, they'll be able to rhyme off in their sleep the hardest words. Okay, there's a list of hard words. They know them all. But women aren't that motivated to crush their opponent. That's what the article said, and so they don't spend time obsessively practicing. It's just not part of them. Have you heard of anything like that?
No, I haven't heard of it. Again, it's a hypothesis based on putting 2 or 3 things together. There's ways in which you can actually test it. You basically measure ambition or drive in 100 women, in 100 men, and then you see their chess playing skills, and then you see if they're matched on ability, how they do. I mean, it seems a little bit far-fetched, but
it makes sense to me. Donna, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I'm super competitive and my husband is not. And it's caused problems when we were in a canoe race and he was trying to pull over so people could get around us. I was like, what are you doing? But on the other hand, the idea of wanting to crush people though, like that doesn't live in me. Like my desire to be the best at something, it's not looking at making other people fail. And I feel like that's a difference, It's not about crushing everyone around me, but it's about still being the best.
I mean, all I'm saying really is that the more a system, organization, or society rewards people and promotes people or assigns status on the basis of how much they want to crush others, the more fucked up that society will be. Because what gets you there, right?
No. But your thing is they seem confident. So if I come in and say, "Hey, Tom, you want to get to this destination," I'm 100% sure that I could reach it, and it's going to make everybody feel good. You don't have to be a psychopath in order to say, hey, I want to hire that guy. But I'll raise one question.
Yeah.
Donna shocked me just now about saying she's far more competitive than her husband. I've known Donna for a couple of years already. I see her quite frequently on the show, and I would say she seems like a modest person, right? Not somebody
I am
who
modest, but I'm highly competitive.
Yeah, and not someone who's aggressive. But here she's telling us that she is. Is that just a sign that she has no leakage and it's hard to interview people and decide what's going on?
I have a high emotional intelligence animal. You still don't know me.
Yeah, you're faking me. I don't think she's faking it. I tell you the truth. What's going on there? I'm shocked. I mean, you've only met her half an hour ago. I've spent many hours.
Yeah, I don't know her well enough, but look, I think really, if I can say one seriously important thing, that is that whoever you are and whatever you do, you really need to make an effort to understand the individual. And if you read the book, that's what I'm saying, right? So it's not about male, female. It's about individual. My final conclusion in that book is that the best gender diversity intervention is to focus on talent, not on gender. And people tell me, oh yeah, I want the best person for the job, regardless of the gender. I said, well, show me that that's actually happening right now. And then they can't show it, right? So if you select people on their actual talent or potential, gender diversity takes care of itself. Actually, you'll probably end up needing affirmative action or positive discrimination to help more men get to the top, and coaching interventions to help them, don't bullshit so much, don't be so deluded, don't be so overconfident, etc. But we're talking about average differences here.
Okay, there's all kinds of questions still not answered. Although I'll just mention, he said hire on talent or potential. Those are two different things entirely. One undercuts the other. You're also saying talent is the only talent that counts is potential, right? So it's not current knowledge. It's really hard. You're making it sound like
I'm saying, talent is the ability to perform exceptionally well or very highly on a given subject matter or expertise or domain of knowledge, right? That's when you have talent, unless you're doing it because of effort or luck. But if you subtract luck, talent is your ability to do it, right? And potential is the ability to see that before it's manifested. So, I'm a soccer fan. Messi obviously has been the greatest soccer player in the world. Everybody knew when he was 20, 19, 18, and 30 and 32 that he was an extraordinary, talented, gifted person. But somebody saw that at the age of 13. That's seeing his potential, right? If you're in your 50s and somebody tells you you have potential, that's a bit of an insult, right? But if they tell you that when you are 10 or 15, that means that you are a bet worth making. You show some of the nascent talent indicators before it's manifested. And so we all have our potential, and understanding our potential is more important than being told that we can do anything we want and that we should, max out on our growth mindset.
Okay, with that sort of downer, I assume it's a downer. If somebody's looking for him, his name is hard to spell. Go to Twitter, and it's at DRTCP. Usually, I don't like it when people say I'm a doctor, okay? But that makes it easy to find him. DRTCP. DRTCP. He's a wonderful writer. I noticed, though, that FastCompany is now making you have to access your old articles, if I'm not mistaken.
I think they're trying to make money,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fair. They are good, okay? They are good and they're unique. I really enjoy them. I feel it's an honor that you've spent an hour with us. Okay, thanks a lot.
Listen, thank you very much. And I have to say, compared to the last time, this was a lot less masochistic, and I weren't so many rockets flying in my direction. So maybe.
Well, there's a couple of things. It's way easier to manage a show when we can see each other. Okay, because there are tells. There's so and so wants to speak, or So I couldn't see it was we were just on audio, and the only thing we talked about was what everybody disagreed with you about was the psychological assessments, and maybe we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we should come back. I'm happy anytime. Even if neither Carol Dweck nor Jordan Peterson are there.
I'm going to try to get you some, Donna. I'm going to see if I can instigate something with those people. Also, the crew here changes all the time. We've got different generations. It's all different people. So if you come back and the rest of the guys come,
yeah.
maybe they won't be so rough on you.
All
Okay,
right.
thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Take
Great
care.
to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Stop recording.